9 random cards. Okay. And so what we do here is we look at each packet one by one, and the spectator is free to write on a piece of paper the number 1, this is pile 1, and then they're free to choose any one of these 3 cards. So maybe on their piece of paper they would write like a 1. Let me just show you really quickly here. They write 1, and then maybe they choose the ace of diamonds. Okay. And then I ostensibly would also be writing on a piece of paper the card I think they've chosen. And of course I have no idea, but that's how it's being presented, that I'm writing down supposedly the card that they've chosen. Okay. And then we do the same thing for the second pile, So on their piece of paper, they would write down 2, and maybe they choose the king of spades. Okay. Very good. Okay. And then for the third pile, they would do a similar thing. They would just put these out and they'd look at it and go, maybe I'll go with the jack of hearts. Okay. So this is the spectators list. Now on my list that they don't see what I'm writing. What I would do is essentially the same thing. But for the first pile, well, it really is the same thing. I would just randomly choose one of these, because it doesn't matter which one I choose, which is amazing. So I would just choose the jack of diamonds, even though I told the spectator I'm going to write down the one they wrote down, which I didn't, right? And then for the second pile, while they're writing down their, king of spades, I look at them and say, well, I'll just go with the 3 of spades. And then during that same moment when they're looking at these and thinking of which one to write down, I write down 1 as well. Now, it could happen that I actually just randomly choose the same one as them. Okay, that can happen. There's a 1 in 3 chance. So, and it doesn't pose a problem for us at all. So I wanted to include that as a possibility. So this would be the performers list, spectators. Okay. And once again, these are on separate pieces of paper. They're looking at theirs, I'm looking at mine. We're not sharing yet. Okay. And so at this point, what happens is you have the spectator randomly stack these. They truly can stack them in any order. It doesn't matter. Okay. And then from here, we can actually mix these if we are careful. And it would be nice to give it some kind of a false mixing just to strengthen the effect. So what you could do, it just occurred to me, is you can just use our HyperCOATing false shuffle. That would be a wonderful one to use, seeing that I've just presented it to you. So we have 9 cards here, right? So what you can do is say, well, at this point we need to randomize these cards. So I just need you to name any card in the deck, any of the 52 cards, free choice. And maybe they'll say ace of diamonds. Okay, and you'll explain, okay, well, I'm going to use the card name that you just gave me, and just to make sure the cards are really getting mixed, I'm going to do it a couple of times. Okay, so ace of diamonds, is that what you said? Yeah. A-C-E-O-F-D-I-A-M-O-N-D-S, ace of diamonds. Let's do it a second time, just to really scramble these cards. A-C-E-O-F-D-I-A-M-O-N-D-S. Okay, well, I think those are certainly mixed beyond the knowledge of either one of us here, because I certainly could not have known what card you would name out of the entire deck of cards. And different card names almost certainly have different numbers of letters. Okay, so I think that's as random can be. So why don't we go ahead and begin kind of in a similar way here. I'm just going to go ahead and just deal these out into 3 piles. And we can actually stop here. Unlike the original presentation, we stacked these and then did some additional cutting, which is fine. But it is true the traditional way to kind of finish is to give the spectator more choices. So you ask them to stack these however they like. Maybe they stack them like this, which is fine. And at this point, you can cut the cards. So if you trust the spectator, they just need to take off a number, put them on the bottom like that. Now we have been talking about the Charlier shuffle, and that's a great one to use right here because any packet cut will preserve the essential structure of these cards for what we need to have happen. So if you've been practicing the Charlier shuffle, that's the bottom to top, top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom. It's a very powerful shuffle that is worth mastering. And it doesn't take much time before you can do this without having to kind of look at your hands and concentrate too much. So each one of those Charlier shuffles is equivalent to just cutting the cards somewhere, someplace in the packet, if I had just cut it at that position, it would have been equivalent to, one of those Charlier shuffles. Okay, so really we've just cut the packet once, which is amazing. An amazing little shuffle, that Charlier shuffle. Okay, and now at this point, what we need to do is you just push off. Now this is different. You just push off sets of 3. Okay, so that's important. You're not dealing this time. So you push off sets of 3, and then you display them in kind of an orderly fashion, just so you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, like this. And now you just need one piece of information from the spectator. All you need them to do is, like, for example, the first card they chose, you just need them to identify what pile is that card contained. Okay, so they're going to look at their little list here, right? And they're going to go, see, the first card I chose was the Ace of Diamonds. And so Ace of Diamonds it's in here. It's in this third pile, right? This pile right here. And so the moment they tell you which pile it's in, you know exactly what card it is. How's that? It's because the card that you chose will be in the same row as their card. Okay? And now if that's not clear that should happen, and it probably isn't given all of the mixing we've done, that is the reason I encourage people to watch the Beyond Read 5 Minds at Once, because it goes into what is going on, and it's not too difficult to see what's going on as long as certain things are explained and pointed out to you. So that's kind of a punchline that you need to believe here, but if you watch that series, you'll know it to be true. So their first card and my first card will be in the same row wherever it is. So if their first card's here, I know it's this one because that's where my card is. It's in that top little row here. And so you would just kind of go, well, I happen to have written down Ace of Diamonds. Is that your card? And their eyes are going to go big, like, okay, how did you get that? Okay, that was just luck. You got lucky. I mean, it's going to be one of these 3, and you just happened to choose it, right? But no, it's not luck. It's mathematics, right? And so what you can do while they're finding their various cards and you're locating, where your card is in relation to it. So as you state these, so, let's say you've told them, boy, that first card they chose, it must have been the Ace of Diamonds, and they'll be surprised. You can just kind of surreptitiously, without making a big deal, you can kind of like draw over what you've written in such a way that they will not be able to tell what's underneath. Okay? And the reason for doing that is so that at the very end, it's likely that they'll say, can I see your piece of paper? And you want to be able to say, sure, take it. And so right now it looks like, what is that, a submarine? I just randomly drew some pieces on it. They're not going to see the Jack of Diamonds there. So what you're doing is you're covering your tracks. As you identify what their card actually was, just somehow cover things up so that it's unreadable, or it'll appear to be some hieroglyphics or some kind of mystical language or something. Okay, and so let's just show you that the rest of our little system's going to work, because now you ask them, okay, what pile contains your second card? Okay, so they'll be looking over here. They'll be finding the King of Spades. Now, while they're doing that, you just need to find your 3 of Spades. So they're busy finding this. You just take a moment, and so you see that your 3 of Spades is in the middle row. Well, whichever pile they point to, it's got to be the middle card, right? Because your card and their card are on the same row, and that's shown in the Read 5 Minds at Once little video I mentioned. Okay, so they'll say, oh, my second card's in here, and you go, oh, that's interesting. I wrote down that it's the King of Spades. Now, I realize that's a fib, right? You didn't write that down at all, but once again, in the world of magic, you expect to be fooled, hopefully. If the magician is doing his job, you should be fooled, okay? And that can involve misdirection, we call it. We don't call it, you lied, we just call it misdirection, right? Or a little fib. Okay, so they point to this pile, you find yours, and you say, oh, King of Spades. And they'll go, whoa, you got 2 for 2. And then, as I mentioned, while all of this is happening, just kind of draw something that might help hide what's going on there, something like that. If you want to draw something that's recognizable, if you're a good artist, you could draw a duck or something, I suppose. Okay, so we're 2 for 2. Okay, and then the last one, oh yeah, this was the interesting case, right? Because we're going to ask them to find which pile contains your 3rd card. Well, they're going to look for the Jack of Hearts, which is in this pile. Well, you just happen to have chosen the Jack of Hearts as well. So you'll be looking for where it's located. It's located right here, right? So if the pile that they name contains the card that you wrote down, they have to be one and the same. So you actually chose the card they chose. Okay, so Jack of Hearts. So you'd be able to say your card is the Jack of Hearts. And I suppose this is being like super sneaky. You could, quote, forget to draw something funny on this one and leave it there so that if and when they ask to see your list, you can show it to them and they'll go, I don't know what that is, but he guessed my card. What the heck is that? But he guessed my card. Oh man, here it's actually the exact card I chose, you know. Or you can draw over it if you would like. So anyway, that is a read three minds at once. So it's based on that same principle that if you have a squared number of cards, you can construct this routine in a way that is incredibly surprising. And then just depending on your mathematical card expertise, you can do some very, very convincing mixing in between or before or even after certain things have been done, which would just strengthen and heighten the surprise of the spectator that you were able to accomplish something that is very, very unlikely.